Hello, horse racing fans, and welcome back to another horse racing analysis. I bet you forgot that I sometimes handicap the horses in quotations. Well, not really. That's why I brought a real handicapper with me, my good friend, Andrew.
Hey everybody, how you doing today? Going to take a look at the big mile and 1/8 race at Gulfstream on Saturday, formerly known as the Don Handicap.
If you ask certain people, they'll say it's still the Don handicap. There's a lot of jokes about Dons that we could make, but for now, we got 12 horses and an also eligible to worry about. Let's start this off with our very first horse, Nimitz Class, which, ironically, that was the name of a teacher in my high school. I didn't have him, though. My brother did. I don't think people liked him. Point is, he's the Pennsylvania representative, and I don't really like him. He had his luck in the Parks Dirt Mile, but there are so many listed stakes races he's run in that he should have won, but he didn't.
Yeah, it feels like this horse he's got definitely got the right style for this race because this is going to be a common theme, at least in my analysis for this race, that you do not want to be coming from behind at Gulfstream going a mile and 1/8. It almost never ever works. No matter how fast the pace is, it's really a detriment. And this horse has that kind of near stalking position that wins a lot of these races. The problem is I don't think he's fast enough to make the lead, and I feel he might just get stuck on the rail and he could work out a really bad trip. Plus, I don't know if he's just fast enough to begin with. He keeps throwing up these pretty decent buyer figures. I'm willing to throw out the last race because it was just so much worse than his other races. But I suppose if you really like George Weaver, like I do sometimes, you might like this one guy a little bit. He is coming in off quite a layoff, though, for a big race like this.
That is a good point. I think that, I'm happy to see him in a major race, and I do like a horse like Nimitz Class in the sense of I like horses who race a lot because it's a dying breed. So I will always appreciate Nimitz Class, and I won't be mad if he wins. I just think it's going to be a tall order. And now for the complete opposite type of horse, we have number two, O'Connor. I actually like him. Last year, I threw him out. I thought that he was just going to be another unsuccessful Chilean import. Now, for every Blue Prize, Cougar 2, and Lido Palace, there are so many Chileans that just don't make it in American racing. But O'Connor is starting to really flip the script. Now, he could be due for a bounce race since he's won his last two races. But for one thing, despite being a more come from behind horse, despite being more of a closing horse, he won the Harlan's Holiday slightly off the pace. So he clearly doesn't mind the distance and the stretch of Gulfstream. He might even like it. The best way I can describe him is that he's sneaky. He's always just kind of like you don't really see him until like the last minute, and sometimes like, oh, I didn't know he got third. Just a real like sneaky horse. And most recently, he's now getting into the Frayne Stakes races. I like the way he's coming along, and I'll root for him.
Yeah, O'Connor to me is a horse that has a chance in this race. I do like that he's come from a little bit off the pace in his last two, but as we've talked about, that's not a great setup here. Now he does get the switch to Paco Lopez. Now, could that mean he's more aggressive early? Quite possibly, but I'm not quite sure what's going to happen here with this horse. He's still drawn a little bit more towards the inside, which I'm not that big a fan of in here. I'm not a big fan of drawing outside, of course, in a mile and 1/8 race at Gulfstream either. But these two from the rail, I really don't know what kind of trip they're going to work out. It kind of depends on jockey moves and kind of that tussle into the first turn. He definitely, I'd say overall, the figures are about even with Nimitz Class, but I like him slightly more. He's got more upside lately, and he's got a good prep over this racetrack where he at least came from 3, 4 lengths off the lead when he was further back the most. But as you can see, he still worked his way up to be close towards the top of the stretch, which I think is a big key. You do not want to be more than 5 lengths behind at the top of the stretch on this racetrack.
Agreed. Any horse proven at Gulfstream is a good sign. So for number three, Dynamic One. It's been a while since I've heard this horse's name. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt in his last race because he hadn't raced in, 13, 14 months, and that was his race to get back. So he just needed something under his belt. So some of the rust could be shaken off, but it does indicate a possible challenge for him that if he's not closer to the pace by the top of the stretch, he's in deep trouble. I've never thought of Dynamic One as a very fast horse. Like, even when he wins, he always kind of plods. He kind of steps into the ground heavily. He doesn't have a lot of speed, but I don't know. Maybe he'll be better off this time and give us a surprise. But if you want a horse who's shaking off rust, I'd wait for first mission.
Yeah, Dynamic One is a horse, as you could see, the best race of his career was his race in the Suburban, one of the worst Suburbans I've ever seen. I saw that race in person where he beat First Captain and I believe his stablemate Untreated in there. He's second off an over a year layoff here, double layoff line. His prep race coming back was not good. He was heavily favored. Nothing happened whatsoever. He was bumped at the start and fanned wide. So if you're looking for upside, he might have it in the fact that he's dressed down. But geez, he's never taken me for the kind of horse that's going to win this race. I don't think a plotter wins this race. There's been nobody even coming from mid pack to win this race, I believe, not once.
This next horse, I think, is almost good, but has a few issues. Hoist the Gold. He's an iron horse. He's been mostly a sprinter, so he definitely is fast enough, but he kind of has a few weird issues. For one, his last two-turn race was the mine shaft. In that race, he had everything go his way. He even got the lead, but he just stopped and finished fourth. Like, even though the Cigar Mile was a good race, and he won by a significant margin, it was a one-turn mile. That seems to be the longest that he's good at. When he was given a similar advantage in the mine shaft, well, for lack of a better word, he blew it. I think that Hoist the Gold also, well, this won't be as much of a problem in this race. He has a weird paradox in the sense of he's not a very fast breaker. In a lot of his races, he breaks a little slower than everyone else, and then the jockey has to really hustle him and push him down on his neck just to keep up. Sometimes it works, but it's a lot of effort.
I agree with pretty much everything you said. And correct me if I'm wrong. I was trying to look it up on Twitter right now from a couple of the New York guys, but I'm pretty sure that Cigar Mile Day there was a huge bias that helped him out. I could be wrong on that, but please look up your own information on that. What I will say, this horse has a couple of fast races. And this horse has speed and probably the best post position of any horse located on the inside half of the field. The combination of being a good horse and having a good inside post position. He's got two big figures, one of them in a sprint race, and then one of them in the Cigar Mile, which came back fast, although I'm not sure how good of a race it was, actually. So I think you got to take him with a grain of salt. I do like Johnny up, but the thing is, you're probably going to get a price on him because National Treasure is going to take money. First Mission's going to take money. There's somebody who's long, yeah, Senor Buscador, who Hoist the Gold beat in the Cigar Mile, and Senor Buscador came from way back. That horse is not going to be 20 to 1. So you got a chance. If you want to use the argument that he beat him already, even though I kind of think Senor Buscador is a better horse than Hoist the Gold, you're gonna get the price. And even though he's shorter on the morning line than Senor Buscador, I don't think it's gonna wind up that way.
Take the risk. He's most definitely the fastest horse in this field, which could help. It's helped horses like Nick's Go and Life is Good before, who, well, Life is Good was at tops, like was a struggling mile and an eighth horse. So this could really help a shorter one-turn horse like Hoist the Gold, but we'll just have to see. Trademark, number 5. Most recently won the Clark Stakes, most easily his biggest race. Usually he's on the receiving end of duels like these, like he was in the Lucas Classic, but he was able to take down First Mission in a head bob, but it does seem like a bit of an isolated win. Throughout the rest of his career, he's always been chasing something or getting nailed. He was just traveling the best in the Clark. Other times, other horses have traveled better than him, and he gets the boot on the other foot. Not so sure what to think of this guy. A consistent horse, but I just don't see him as a winner.
Yeah, that was really an outlier, and he got a good trip, but he also ran very well. So if you think he can repeat that effort, you're probably gonna get a decent price on him because he's probably gonna be forgotten about in here a little bit. If you like him, cheers to you. But he's a little too inconsistent for me. He's got a lot of in the money finishes earlier in his career This is a horse with a lot of foundation. The question is, how strong were those races? And the answer is, I really don't know.
I can't imagine Trademark's name next to the plaque. Senor Buscador. We brought him up before. I've seen this horse in person a few times. One of the horses I'm happy to have been able to see. My thing with him is that he had a great San Diego handicap, but it was such an isolated race. He comes from so far back, and he always finds a way to lose. In races like in the Oaklawn handicap, he was close enough to have been able to do something, but he didn't because the other horses were better. So he just fell back. And even when he gets the chance to really like fly up in California races, he always just seems to find a way to screw it up. Not necessarily through traffic, but he's always just too slow to get there. The San Diego was the one time everything came like worked together. And while it might be easy to bring up the argument of the stretch length when it comes to Gulfstream, from what I can tell, Del Mar actually might have a similar length stretch, so that won't be a
It
problem.
does. Del Mar has, I believe, just a slightly shorter stretch than Gulfstream.
So, with that said, Senior Buscador won't have to necessarily worry about the length of the stretch, but he's still gonna have to worry about himself. He's the exact opposite of the type of horse who wins this kind of race, and even though he flies late consistently, he rarely wins. I don't see this being the game changer.
Here's the thing. I think he's very talented, and I think he's borderline top three on talent in the race. And I think he's a better horse than Hoist the Gold. But people bet speed figures. This horse has good speed figures. This horse is not going to be 20 to 1. I seriously doubt it. Unless the public money comes in so much and he gets ignored that way, I don't see it happening. This horse might be third or fourth choice in this race because of his figures. With that said, I would never bet him in here. No chance at all. Because of the combination of that and his running style. What he would need is for all the pace on paper in here to actually show up, number one. And even if it does, he needs Gulfstream to play abnormal to what it does. Because we see all the time fast paces here that don't collapse at least completely all the way on the front end. You see horses coming from the clouds to get third or fourth, but usually not first or second. So I'm not really in love with this horse, and I'd let him beat me.
Now for the favorite. And I don't like calling this guy the favorite because I don't really like him in this position. But at the same time, there have been multiple Pegasuses and just races in general where I'll say, why the heck is this guy the favorite? Like, I didn't understand why White Iberia was the favorite for the Breeders' Cup Classic, but then I was proven wrong. And I'm going to be really angry if that's the case with National Treasure. But I don't like him here. His big thing is that he's spotty. National Treasure's whole gimmick is he needs the lead, or at least is close to it. And that's what he got in the Preakness Stakes. That was a pretty easy race given to him, and he had just enough heart to make it all work. And the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, he had a perfect trip as well, and Cody's Wish had everything kind of against him. He was more of a one-turn horse, but his raw heart was able to outdo the youthful talent of National Treasure. But then in races like the Travers, the Awesome Again, and the Belmont especially, which we can throw out because it's a mile and a half in this case, he just didn't start great. And that's going to be so important here. If he's able to get to the lead, then we're going to see something like Mucho Gusto. That's how he is going to win this race. But I see a lot of ways that this could be messed up. Defunded had a similar archetype. Maybe not the favorite, but he was pretty close. And people thought that this was going to be easy. It wasn't. He lost. I think there's just as many ways for National Treasure to screw it up, considering that he's about, at best, the level of Defunded was, and Defunded didn't get it finished.
Then I think that's a pretty good comparison. Here's what I think about National Treasure. I think his Breeders' Cup race was just, and it bears out in the figure, even though I don't think the figure should be as high as it is. I think it's a completely fake figure because I don't think that race was as fast as what it says. But that Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile was by far the best race he's ever run. He also ran it over a track at Santa Anita that's usually very kind to horses that have his style. So I'm not sure what to think about that, but I do know one thing. He is at an advantage of being outside of Hoist the Gold. he is also at a disadvantage of being inside first mission. And those are two horses they're absolutely going to want position in this race, as does he. Now, the one other advantage he has is that this horse has shown the potential to rake before. The problem is he hasn't really been that successful at it. He's at best, as most on the lead horses are, when they're on a comfortable lead by themselves. Think about the Preakness. The Preakness, by the way, he should have lost because Ira had screwed up the ride in the stretch. It was absolutely horrible. The Dirt Mile, the horse actually ran well because he ran fast fractions, no matter what you think of the track. I just think 9 to 5 is too short on this horse because of the competition he's going to have around them. He might be the best horse in this race, and I think he definitely has run the best actual race out of the field, even if the numbers don't say so. But, geez, 9 to 5. And Baffert does this all the time. He ships, he wins, he's successful down here in Florida. On the East Coast in general, when he ships, you got to watch out. But geez, it's not enough for me. I mean, why would I bet $100 on this horse? Would I feel even 25% confidence he's going to win this race? No more than that. So he's a bad bet.
Just a weak bet. Mucho Gusto, some may argue Mucho Gusto looked worse going into the Pegasus, and they had similar archetypes, but it just doesn't matter. When you're the favorite, you need to be more than just okay. And even when reasonable favorites like Cyberknife came forward, well, that didn't work out. That leads us over to another horse who should have been in the Preakness and could have won it if it weren't for racing luck in the sense of he got scratched. First Mission. He's been just recovering and recovering, and this is about like as good of a position as he's going to get. He struggled through his allowance race through no fault of his own because he got the window shut on him, and he still won, and he was also coming off a long layoff. So the fact that he did win anyway is credible, even if some might be worried by the short margin. And the Clark Stakes, he lost to a head bob. And again, he was shaking off more rust. Like, he may have had an allowance race in him, but I wouldn't say that's enough. So the fact that he only lost by a head bob and also had bared the responsibility of going to the lead. It's not like he had a very vicious pace, to be fair, but Trademark was in a better position at an energy-saving trip. Meanwhile, First Mission just slowly got chipped away and finally was nailed at the finish line. One other bob, and he would have won the Clark, and we would have had a different story. So First Mission, a good front-running horse, and in terms of fitness, he should be coming in at the perfect time and at the peak of his powers. So I can understand him being like second choice or even the favorite.
Yeah, he's probably going to be the second choice at here. And I think he's in an advantage from the sense I talked about the 4, 7, 8 before. He is the furthest outside of those three, which I think is going to be of great help to him. Being in the 3 path going into the first turn is not a death sentence at Gulfstream. He's not parked out in the 11 or 12 like Crupi or Skippylongstocking. I wish he would have won that race. I really do. But I think he's still showing a pretty decent natural progression, even with the half a year off that he had. I do like this horse. I'm worried he's not going to be 7-2. I'm worried he's going to be shorter than that. I think 7-2 is a decent price on him because I don't think there's a lot of horses in here that can actually win the race. So that's fine. If he's 5-2 or something like that, I really don't think he's a great bet. I'd love to see 4-1 or 9-2 and see people completely ignore him a little bit, but I doubt that happens. Now, the Clark was flashed as a closer-friendly race, which is a little bit odd considering the two horses who ran 1-2 were fairly close in there, and the pace wasn't necessarily that fast. Another thing with First Mission and the next horse, Grand Aspen, who we're going to get to. Both these horses seem like they like to be towards the lead. Both of them have never run seriously fast fractions before being on the lead in a route. So that's going to be interesting to see how he handles that. The last two have been kind of soft. At least the Clark was a little bit more pace-filled, as was his maiden race. Of course, not as stiff competition. But he's going to have to run faster early, but he does have that advantage of being outside and being the hunter rather than the hunted.
I can see that. Grand Aspen. I don't like this guy. I wasn't impressed with his Harlan's Holiday. I think there's a big difference between kind of just being near the lead in a Gulfstream race and letting a sneaky link on the inside get you, and well, O'Connor being that sneaky link. It was way more impressive that O'Connor got up on the inside by a head than Grand Aspen just letting him get away in that stretch duel. If he can't handle O'Connor in a significantly less chaotic race, I think this is going to be a lot worse for him.
Yes, see, that's what turned me off. Everything about this horse was originally saying to me, this horse could be a contender. You've got that natural progression I was talking about with First Mission, and in fact, Grand Aspen is outside of First Mission. So you think if the 4, 7, and 8 all tire each other out, plus whoever else might want to have be close to the lead, because there are others in here that want to be near the front, this guy could be sitting not too far behind, but close enough to be able to make that move on the far turn and come up, get rid of those horses near the lead, and obviously hold off the closers if there are any coming. The problem is, man, that race turned me off. If you think that he can improve from there, then I think you're going to get the price. Very common theme in here because the top two are going to take so much money, and it's a 12-horse field. But geez, is he gonna run that same Harlan's Holiday? And even if he does, is that good enough? I really don't know. And like you said, I was more impressed with O'Connor coming through down towards the inside, certainly, than he was getting his pretty much a perfect trip in there. So I mean, if you think he's gonna get a perfect setup again, okay. I think he can. I still don't know if he's good enough though.
Whoever bets on him, though, if he wins, they're going to be a lucky, lucky man. After Grand Aspen, we have Il Miracolo, the winner of Parks Racing Smarty Jones Stakes. I mean, I think he's a this is a very odd trait thing to describe him as, but he's a unfocused horse. Like in the Fayette Stakes, he only got his head straight in the final 100 yards. Meanwhile, O'Connor was set on business, and O'Connor got him beat because Il Miracolo just didn't get his head in the game until late. Even his victory in the Smarty Jones, he took that rider all the way to the hot dog stand. Even with the blinker and shadow roll, akin to something like Gate Dancer or Spicer Cub, a somewhat talented but very unfocused horse. And even in his races where he's finishing third, like the Penn Derby and the Clark Stakes, they're very distantly beat. Now, I do like that he did change from being a dead set front runner over the course of the year to a stalker who can pick up the pieces, but it feels like he fights tooth and nail just to get peanuts because he's never in a chance to win. He's always just fighting for that third medal. And I don't really like that. He doesn't seem like someone who could go the extra mile and an eighth and win the race outright. He would struggle for third at best.
I don't think he's a win contender at all, and I don't know if he's even going to hit the board. He's consistent, but he'd be a great allowance horse. He'd win allowance races over and over and over again. I just don't know if he's good enough for these, and this isn't even that strong a running of this race. I don't have almost anything good to say about him. Sorry.
Crupi. Now it's time for that sort of allowance horse. So Crupi has been a very late developing horse. It took him forever to break his maiden. They were in such a rush to get him to the Derby that they decided to forget breaking his maiden and just try his luck in the Risen Star and Wood Memorial. It didn't work, so they gave him a break. And when he came back, he was a new animal. He's won 4 of 5 races. Now the big argument to be made, he did not win the Pennsylvania Derby. His lone stakes attempt, he lost it. But it's a very underappreciated 5th-place finish because he was 16 lengths behind in the backstretch. He was so far back. He was barely in frame, and he was cruising really well, and then he just gets shut off in the stretch. If he had that opening, he could have got third, and people would have been talking way more positively about this horse. But because he got shut off in the final furlong, he just never got it back together. I think that that race he could have done so much better if it weren't for poor racing luck, and the fact he came from so far behind was pretty impressive. That kind of come from behind performance he should not do in the Pegasus, but he has come from a bit closer off the pace. And his win in the Queens County Stakes finally put the whole could he win in a large field thing to rest. He stayed relatively mid pack, fought well, maybe a little late to finally get going, but he did win the race. That's what's important. If they can get him a little closer than Queens County and don't go with the Pennsylvania method, he could be a surprise late with some extra kick.
I agree, and I would love this horse to fill out the triple here. I really like his last couple of races, and he definitely has not seen a pace like there's going to be in here, but I don't want him to be that close in here because I'm not considering him as a win contender. I'm considering him as someone to spice up the triple. Now, are other people going to see that as well? Absolutely. But I also think other people are going to bet horses that I'm not going to use at all, uh, like the 9 Grand Aspen and the 6 Senor Buscador. So I like Crupi to run a real nice race here. He's got the Tory, food for thought. He's only 15%, but he tends to show up well in these big races. So I'm going to use him definitely in the exotic picks.
Good man. And last but not least, I'm not really counting Castle Chaos because it seems very likely that they'll just lean towards the Hooper unless they scratch him, I guess. Skippylongstocking. He was a big part of our debate last year, and now he's back. I don't think he had a big excuse in the Pegasus World Cup. He just ran a bad race. And then he came back, do some good things. He had another bounce race in the Ben Ollie. He's okay. Like, clearly, with a win at, like, the Charlestown Classic, he does have, and his win in the Harlan Holiday in 2022, he clearly knows his way around a short stretch run, but there's a lot of times where he's either going to be chasing someone's dust and finishing a decent second or third, and then there's the rare time where he finally puts it all together and wins. He doesn't seem like a horse who always likes to win. Sometimes he's just perfectly content beating all but one horse, like he was in the Cornhusker, where he just let Giant Game do everything. Or in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, he just didn't have it in him, and it was a slugfest between National Treasure and Cody's Wish, so he decided to sit it out. He wouldn't be a part of that kind of confrontation. But he's still talented. There's still some value to be had here. Just because he blew it last year doesn't mean he couldn't do better this year. But I don't know. He does kind of blend in a bit more this year because there are more horses and there's less standouts.
I'm gonna have a little bit of a hot take here. If this horse was in post 9 or inside, I probably would have picked him on top in here. I think this horse is good. I've always liked him. I picked him in this race last year along with Art Collector, so I wish he would have actually ran his race because that would have really spiced up the exotics in there. I had exactas and triples with those two involved. So that was disappointing that he ran so badly in here. The 12 post is just almost a death sentence. We say it time and time again at Gulfstream. Those three outside posts, 10, 11, 12, going a mile and an eighth, are not good. Here's the difference. Crupi is going to be coming from further behind, so it's not as big of a deal for him. Skippylongstocking, he's never really come from far back almost in his whole career, leaning back all the way to geez, almost a year and a half, 2 years ago when the Preakness was the last time he's probably gonna be that far back this time. Unless Gaff Leone pulls a Junior Alvarado in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies with just FYI, which was a very smart move to gun it from the outside post. But then if you do that, the question is, who else are you going to be tackling and how fast is this going to be between the 4, 7, 8, and so on, whoever else decides to go up there. I'm gonna include him in my picks just because I think he's good, but I can't pick him on top like I had pretty much in mind before this race was drawn. It's just a really, really bad post. He's gonna cover a lot of ground. I don't he didn't do too well. I believe he was out wide in this race last year. Yeah, 4 wide, little left was the comment. So he kind of been down this road before. I'll give him another little chance in the picks underneath, but geez, I won't be surprised if he actually wins. I wouldn't be too surprised just because I know he's good, and I'm not in love with the two favorites in here. Just at some point, you got to think how many issues is there going to be for this horse in this race, and I think there's quite a few.
Oh, dude. And that's the whole field for the Pegasus World Cup. So for me, to limit myself down to three horses, I'm gonna I'm gonna lean more towards O'Connor because well, he's more consistent, has more experience. But of course, I think First Mission, like the most I guess traditional pick here. First Mission is definitely gonna be up there with me. My two main picks, First Mission and O'Connor, both opposite sides of the spectrum, but both coming in at the right time. That's their big thing they got in common, and I could see both in the winner's circle. And a little down below, I think Crupi could fly late and get something real nice. Sorry, Skippy. And then Skippy's gonna win. That's what's gonna frickin' happen. As soon as I jump off Skippy, he's gonna win the race. The one year I don't pick him. That's what's gonna happen. But I'll take the risk.
Yeah, I might feel the same way. I'm going to go with First Mission in here. Gun to my head, top pick. Not really an enthusiastic top pick by any means. I'm going to use First Mission with the 12, Skippylongstocking, the 11, Crupi. We talked about the outside post positions being disadvantageous, but I also think those two horses are going to present some sort of value. And then I'll throw in the favorite, fourth, National Treasure, who's probably going to get a very good setup in here. The only problem for him will be if First Mission pushes him from the outside too much, is that going to hurt him and is he going to fold in the stretch? Well, he certainly didn't fold in the stretch last time, and even in the Belmont, it took a while for him to fold in the stretch. So he's definitely got some fight to him. So those in order, if you really want an order from me, it would be 8, 12, 11, 7. But the real play here is to box the four of those in any order.
Oh, we're like-minded people. We're head-to-head like Cody's Wish and National Treasure. So make sure to let us know what your picks are in the comment section below, and we'll see who wins, if any of us win. Hopefully we all get I don't know, get some rest, have a fun time either at the Pegasus World Cup surrounded by celebrities and high ticket prices,
Thank
or
you for throwing that
sitting
in.
or sitting at home in the comfort of your own home where you can just watch horses on your TV, your computer, or some pizza. I don't know. However you like to watch your horses. I think simpler is better.
I like to watch my horses in person at the track, but not for 210 bucks.
So with that, I'm Nathan Klein, also known as Sketchy the Horse Guy, and this was Andrew, also known as Road Warrior 727 or 67. I can't count. I just know how to not pick horses and get them to lose. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let's have a good Pegasus and a good start to the racing year.
Good luck, everybody. Pay your bills first. May the odds be ever in your favor.
And wear your seatbelt.